Hello everyone and welcome back to the X-Ring. I hope everyone's doing well this week. Guys, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the latest offerings from Zeiss with regards to tripods, as well as some of the accessories for those tripods. But I really wanted to go over what you need to know about a tripod purchase before you actually make one. Guys, that saying, you don't know what you don't know, really holds true when it comes to tripod selection. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about all of this before we release the new information on the new Zeiss tripods. Back in the day when I was a sniper, I always carried these on any type of mission. It just stayed in the pack, and it was literally 3 sticks with some 550 cord, and you could make a rudimentary tripod setup about anywhere. You could do it wherever you wanted to, and you know, they were kind of camoed out, but it gave us a rest and it gave us something to be able to carry easily. It was lightweight. It's always good to have some wood and then also some 550 cord, but it gave you a way to get over high grass or things like that. All right, so before we start throwing a bunch of tripods at you and giving you weights and prices and things like that, let's talk about the history of the tripod. Guys, it's nothing new. It goes all the way back to ancient Greece, and then when it came to photography, you started to see that in the late 1800s because they needed something for longer elapsed time for the exposures. They wanted it steady, and it really wasn't anything that was used in shooting until about that time when they started doing shooting sticks with 2 sticks. But we all know that a tripod, 3 legs, has more stability than, let's say, 2 or a pair of shooting sticks. So tripods can do a lot of things really well. They didn't really start shooting with tripods until the Iraq War. The Marines really started developing shooting from tripods from different locations for concealability, getting over objects, and that's when you really started to see this push into shooting tripods. Before then, it was pretty much relegated to photography stuff. And a lot of the photography stuff and the mounts that you see on these modern tripods with the Arca Swiss rail, guys, that dates back to the early 1900s, where that was kind of like the standard. You're starting to see all these platforms integrated with Arca rails into them, or you have to add them. But it was a better way to attach things than just using a Picatinny. Or in the case of something like this, you could use, back in the day, it was a hog saddle, and then I know Bog came out with them, but you have clamps that will work on rifles that don't have Picatinny and they don't have Arca Swiss rails. Now guys, tripods are not all equal. I think there's 4 things you need to consider when you purchase a tripod. Number 1, and unfortunately in this economy and everything, one of the biggest motivators is going to be price, right? You've got to figure out your budget, okay? If you're wanting a tripod like this and all you have is $500 to spend, then you're not getting that tripod, okay? So you've got to figure out what your budget is. You also need to figure out, and I think it's actually more important than the price, is what you're using it for. What is the mission of this tripod? Are you using it on a ruck style match? Are you using it as an RO? Or are you just using it for photography equipment? And there's a huge difference there, not only in stability, but also materials and also price. So you've got mission, you've got price, you've got weight. Weight is a big thing because that's going to tie into that mission, okay? I wouldn't want to carry this for 30 miles, and not calling out Fat Boy, I'm just saying, you know, this tripod right here is not a lighter weight tripod, and so on a ruck style match or a CD style match or NR 100, that might not be the right choice for you. However, when you're shooting a big recoiling rifle, let's say this one in 300 Norma or 300 PRC, I also don't want to be choosing something like this old school Night Force. This was like circa 2017. Probably one of the worst tripods ever built or purchased in my life. I was really surprised there was a Night Force name on it when I got it. But I paid $400 for it. We're going to talk about some certain things here in a bit, but what you need to look for in some of these tripods. Now, what you started seeing is if an optics manufacturer produced good quality optics, then it usually followed, you would see a tripod follow along with it. Leupold makes a series of tripods called the Mark V HD. Vortex has them as well. And then you also have Zeiss that's entering into the market. And that's not all of them, but a lot of times you will see optics companies get into the tripod world because it's a big segment. You're starting to see a lot of hunters. Even when I did the elk hunt out in Oklahoma, I had a tripod with me, not for just shooting, but also for glassing. If you're sitting down, you're in a chair, or even if you're standing, you're going to get a much better picture. Just think about why you need a tripod in the first place on glassing or spotting targets using a tripod. So having all this information is going to be extremely important on your purchase. So we covered mission, we covered price, we covered weight, because they're all going to be different weights. And then we also have to think about portability, okay? So, you know, when you're choosing a tripod, guys, this is a perfect example. This is a 2-vets, this is a 2 extension or 2-leg extension on a tripod, but as far as portability, it is lightweight and it can reach any height that I pretty much want it to over my head, you know, probably 6'2" or something. And this is really a nice tripod, but it's also very, very tall. Okay, so sitting on this table here, it's going to be considerably taller than, let's say, this Leupold Mark V. So you can see the difference in the length of it, or that portability. If you have this strapped to a backpack and you go to sit down with the backpack on, unless you're carrying this high on your backpack, you know, like an antenna, it is going to matter. Now, I also believe there is a 5th element, and that is going to be speed, how fast you can actually deploy the tripod. And I'll give you some examples of this here in just a little bit, but that's going to matter if you're shooting under the clock. If you have a time constraint, let's say you're shooting an NRL hunter match or a competition dynamics match, you really need to think about how quick it is going to be to deploy this. Some matches allow you to have the legs deployed when you walk up and you can carry them extended, and then other match directors and certain rules dictate that you have to deploy on the clock from the stowed position. You're not running up with your tripod in your hands. So all that's going to matter. Now, before we get into all that, let's talk about some of the tripod nomenclature, okay? So, of course, you've got the feet. Almost all of them are going to have some type of rubber feet on here, and then many of them will also have a replacement, or you can flip this around, or some inserts where you can put spikes on the end of it. One of the things I will tell you is it's very easy to lose rubber feet in pretty much any tripod, even if they put an O-ring around it. Think of it kind of like some of your bipods. If they don't have Loctite on them, you can lose these feet. The next you want to talk about are the legs. Okay, now these are conventional legs. You will see that from the top here, it's wide, gets narrow, more narrow, and narrower. So on this Leupold, you actually have smaller legs at the bottom with fatter legs at the top. That's going to be important later. But you also have twist locks, or a locking mechanism, okay? And so this actually takes time to lock and unlock, but you have to have a way to do that. The next thing you're going to have are your leg locks. Okay, this allows you to change your angles, and on these leg locks, a lot of times you can push them out, a lot of times you have to push them in, but we can change the angle of the tripod leg. Okay, so if you want it flatter to the ground, you could do that, and there's also another position on most of these where you can do about 3 different positions. A lot of them will have a level on the top just to get this, what we're going to call the spider. Some people call it the bowl. Whichever you want to call it, that's fine. Just remember, when I say spider, or if I say bowl, I'm referring to this area. Now, when you get into videography stuff, a bowl is truly, it looks like a half of a bowl, and then you have a head that fits in there and then it swivels. This way it's easy to level your camera or your filming equipment just by using that bowl. But there's other ways to do that within the ball head itself. So that's going to be the next thing, which is the ball head. Guys, a lot of times this bowl can be removed. So you have a pinch clamp, and you usually have a button that you have to push or pull, and you will have a circle there. Okay, we're going to call that a bowl. Now, that allows you to change different ball heads, okay? And not all manufacturers are the same when it comes to this diameter bowl, if you will, okay? There's usually a center or a center post. We'll talk about that here in just a minute, where you can extend the center post height. There's some disadvantages to that too, but there's usually a hook so that you can ballast it, because if you don't have a really steady tripod and it's real windy, it can topple over. You can damage your optics. I've got a set here I'm going to show you that toppled in New Mexico at a match, but it's something to think about. So once you enter it inside of there in that bowl, that ball head, then you can tighten it down and this will not come out. Now, typically on the sides, you're going to have something like a 1/4-20 or some of the accessories that you can attach into the sides of the spider or the bowl. Now, on the top part here, you have the ball head. Now, the ball head is very important because it depends on what you're trying to do with it. Now, one of my most favorite tripods, and you guys know that I've been using this for years, this is the TFCT24 by Really Right Stuff. You know, that started off and still is a photography company, but they have a SOAR division, and they have this Anvil 30. Now, this Anvil 30 is super, super useful. It's got an ARCA, it's got a Picatinny in it, so you can lock in a rifle with a Picatinny. At 6 o'clock, you can lock one with an ARCA. Quick adjust, and you have a throw lever here. This gives you infinite ability to be able to pretty much get whatever high angle shot you want, low angle shot. It's very quick, very stable. But if you needed to shoot off the top of this, there's times where you don't want to clip in. If I were to take, let's say, a Schmedium Game Changer, and I wanted to shoot off the top of this, you can absolutely do it, and it will work. But you're not going to have the stability and the ease of movement, I think, for how the Schmedium is designed to work, whether you run it this way or the other way. Having a bowl on top does give you a more stable platform than this little perch on top of this Really Right Stuff. So be careful when you're choosing your ball heads, because it can matter. So this has worked for me for pretty much everything, but I know that if I needed to shoot off of a bag, one of the DMR matches that I won like 3 months ago, it was almost 170-degree transition. Well, I didn't want to be clipped in and trying to adjust that with a huge swing. It was easier to do that with a bag, because you could fire, go over, move without having to actually use this lever to lock in. It was the quickest way to do it, and in that case, I actually grabbed the Fat Boy because it has a bowl similar to this. I pulled the top off. So if they allow tripods, why wouldn't you? So the head is something to think about really heavily. The very first tripod I ever bought was this Night Force. Like I said, I think I bought it because of the name. It had these cool kooky features. The one that had the red turned into walking sticks, probably the heaviest walking sticks you'll ever use in your life. But once again, look at this top here. Number one, it wasn't a true ARCA. This is a clamp plate for your camera equipment. And I don't know what they were thinking when they came to market with this. The other thing is over time, I'm not dogging on Night Force, but at the same time, this was not a quality product, nothing that I would associate with Night Force. You guys can see how this rubber cover slid over this. Basically, all of these rubber legs that you lock with are starting to come off. All of the glue has come off of it. When you get caught in the rain, you're not turning this. You don't have the grip or the ability to be able to do it. And honestly, this was just some cheap Chinese made camera tripod with Night Force name slapped on it and the Night Force logo. So this was probably the worst tripod I've ever bought, but this is relegated to nothing but video content. Usually when I have a camera downrange and I'm getting a target downrange, if this gets shot, I won't even cry. Matter of fact, if I left it at the range, I probably wouldn't even go back for it, depending on which range it is. Now, this one has a center shaft. You guys can see this, and this can help elevate. But the problem is when you start doing this on the single mast, now you start having stability issues because of your leverage that you're applying to that. The downside is unless you can remove this very quickly, if I needed to take a low shot with this, let's say something, now guys, you gotta also think the market constantly changes with all of these triple pulls and R3 designs and hatch bipods. You know, getting to a position where you can shoot, you know, maybe this high off the ground or this high off the ground, it's not that important. But if you wanted to get this really, really low, you couldn't do it because the center mast was in here. And remember, if you elevated this, now you're raising the whole rifle. So having a removable center mast is very important. Now let's talk a little bit more about these silly ball heads. You have a bunch of different options. So on this one, what you'll see, probably the most common ball head is one that attaches the way that I showed you. You're going to have this big knob here that allows you to be able to rotate, looks like a hip socket, okay? And this will allow you to tension it, and it allows you to get some good angles because you do usually have 2 slots here so that if you needed to go downwards quite a bit, you could. I mean, you can go all the way 90 degrees. And then you have 2 more knobs here. One is going to adjust the tension. Let me get this tightened up here. One is going to adjust the tension on being able to rotate it, and the other one is going to be the ball clamp here. So you have 2 of these, and I tell you what, when you're in a hurry, sometimes this can get confusing and these will get locked up. One of my biggest complaints about this Leupold, and I did win this in a match, I'm not complaining about it. This has actually been on 2 mammoth matches. I usually loan out a lot of my tripods to shooters that are getting ready to shoot matches. They don't have one or whatever, because it is a big expense. This is a $1,300 tripod if you were to go buy it at the store. But my biggest complaint about this, and you'll see there's a bunch of anodizing missing off this knob, is it's really hard to get leverage on this. It's like they designed it the wrong way. It tapers from large to small, and so I have no leverage here. On something like, I will tell you, like on the new Zeiss, the way they've done it is they reverse the knobs, so the knobs are fatter on the end and they taper to the inside. And just the way the hand works, it's just easier to do that. Now, when you get into some of these other ones, this is a Fat Boy. This Fat Boy has the bowl, and I can't put this in this one, I don't believe. Some of these are interchangeable. I'm trying to do all this to keep it from moving around too much. But on the Leupold, if I take the ball head off and I want to use, let's say I just happen to like the green, whatever the reason that I chose it. I've got a release around here somewhere. If I remove this, I can drop it in this Leupold, but it doesn't lock. So be careful when you choose a head, because this diameter can vary. And so between different manufacturers, that lock position might or might not work. Now on the Zeiss, I can tell you that the Zeiss is interchangeable with the Leupold. Fat Boy just kind of seems like they kind of do their own thing on the location. But either way, here's another example of a ball head. This has great up and down. That's one of the things I look at, is how much can you move it left and right and up and down. This one also has the Picatinny as well as the Arca lock. It is a very smooth, bomb-proof platform. Wish this was reverse tapered, but the difference is this has a rubber cover and it is easy to actuate, unlike the little tiny one that's a small knob that's really hard to get a purchase on that. So Fat Boy did a really good job with this. I actually used a Fat Boy out in Texas on a hog hunt. We used them all night long. This is a super sturdy tripod. I think it has 44 millimeter legs, very thick, especially when you compare it to something like the Really Right Stuff. It's just a lot thicker legs, gives you more stability, but that comes at a heavier weight, okay? Once again, when we extend these legs, this one goes from fat to small. What you're starting to see now on the market are what we call inverted legs, reverse legs, because it's all about speed as well. Now, one of the things I do want to show you, guys, these tripods get used. They're not just for aesthetics. You can see how this is split. So this rubber, look at that. I'm just barely pulling on it. I'm just going to remove it because I'm just saving myself some time later on down the road. This gives you something to hold on to, but that probably should have been glued on. You saw how easy it came off, so a little slight impact caused a slit and it came off. Now, I'm not calling out Fat Boy on that. I'm just showing you some things that can happen. Another good thing is some of these accessories, like this is called a side check, and if I wanted to be able to put a phone camera, a Kestrel, anything like that, I can articulate this and then attach whatever I want to attach in here, phone mount or whatever. It's very handy if you're trying to get footage at a match. Now, before we get into the Zeiss stuff, the last one I want to mention, very honorable mention, is going to be Two Vets. Two Vets has always made a really good tripod for the money. The fit, the finish, the quality is almost second to none. Very fat legs. This is the QDT V2, but this is not my first choice for any type of ruck. It's a very tall tripod. And it's fast, because all you have to do is 3 twist locks and you can get the height that you need. But just realize you're not going to be able to get but so low with this. I mean, you can splay the legs out, you really can, but they're long legs, so you have to splay them out a long ways in order to be able to get down really low with it. But like I said, with today's tripods, it really doesn't matter. Once again, reverse taper on this. Has an Arca clamp on top and no Picatinny. Same setup as the Leupold. And if you notice here on this Fat Boy, I don't have those other ones. So be thinking about how that ball head works. There's a lot of great options out there, but these are some things you need to think about with the tripod. There's a big difference between shooting a little Ruger 1022 off this tripod and shooting something that's really heavy and robust. So we're going to talk about binocular attachments. We're going to talk about shooting from the tripod, how quick some of them can be, how long they take, and we'll go from there. I know it's long, but I want you guys to get great information. Now, other than going into the Zeiss stuff, I do want to cover what they call reverse legs. And this is a Tricer. Guys, this thing punches way above its weight. This is the HK, Tricer HK. And this thing works very, very well. I had a chance to meet Drew, mentioned that to you guys. And this thing is super lightweight. It's one of the lightest ones on the table. While it doesn't have the thickest legs, it is small enough to be pretty portable. And this comes in just over 3 pounds. I actually have the exact weight over there beside of me. I'll get that to you in just a second. But with the reverse taper, basically you have 3 extensions, but it goes from small to large. So this way, what ends up happening is when you need to tighten it back up, you can do that from the top of the spider position rather than having to reach all the way down. So deploying this, when you pull it out, having the what we call inverted legs is what it's actually referred to as. It's pretty quick. 2 rotations and you can lock this into place. And on a lot of these, you can just let them fall. So that's the idea on the reverse taper, is if you, or the inverted legs, is regardless of the ground, if it's a good quality inverted leg, then you should be able to loosen, and while it's on the ground, get the height, get the profile of the ground, and sometimes they stick like that. That's the problem with some of these inverted legs. Not all of them will do it, and if they get a little bit of debris, they might do it new from the store, but then it is just a matter of tightening them up, and you can do that pretty quickly with these inverted legs. So you're starting to see a lot of people utilizing inverted legs. There is a downside to inverted legs though, and the downside is that if you're using a tripod caddy, let's say like the Armageddon gear, the Coltac, there's a bunch of other ones, doing those attach points here, those legs aren't going to work. And they're, you know, if you're an RO or if you're shooting PRS, having that tripod caddy is very, very helpful. Now let's talk about the Zeiss. Now the Zeiss is a heavyweight contender. This is a big, heavy tripod. They have 3 different models and they sell them as kits. You have the universal, you have the lightweight, and then you have the Pro Series Max Duty. Guys, I will tell you, coming in at 12 pounds with this ball head, it is not something you would take on a ruck match, okay? You guys know my saying is there's no free lunch. This is probably the fastest tripod I've ever used as far as deploying, because it is a single twist lock that's very large, and when you turn it, it locks all 3 legs. So deploying quickly is actually quite simple. You just rotate a quarter turn, 90 degrees, let it go, quarter turn, 90 degrees, and that's it. She's locked. Guys, me just doing that, I'm 185 pounds. I can hang off this no problem. It's not what it's designed to do though. You have working loads and then you have ball head loads, which are quite different. I think this one comes in at 66 pounds or so, but that's with everything that's on it for this ball head. This also has a center shaft that's removable, and guys, there are a lot of different ball heads that are available for the Zeiss. They have 3 different ones. We're going to go over those in just a minute, but I had a chance to look at this and use it at SHOT Show 2025 in January. This is a very unique system. The way that they've designed this ball head, it's quick, it is smooth, and let me go ahead and get this down to a height where it's not covering my face. Let's go ahead and get it here, lock, lock. Like I said, it's the quickest lock system I've ever seen. Now, if speed is your thing, let's say on a DMR, let's see how long this takes. We're going to time it, compare some of the other tripods. We're going to get this specific to about shoulder height. And guys, that's about as fast as I can get on a tripod, shoulder height, getting it set up with the Zeiss. So now what we're going to do is superimpose some of these other tripods, including the 2 vets, to see how fast that is. The really right stuff. So guys, if it's a 90 stage DMR, or 90 second stage on a DMR, this is as fast as I can unload these things. I'm not trying to make the really right stuff look bad. We want shoulder height. Let's get this one out front. because you guys know Really Right Stuff was my fastest. There we go on that one. So you decide. It depends. Can you use that extra 10 seconds for extra shots? Are you running out of time? You know, now that I played around with these 3 leg extensions, I didn't realize how much time I was actually losing on that. Unfortunately, I don't have a ARCA on this Barrett. Right now, it's just in a clamp system. Zeiss does offer a clamp system as well as other companies. Trisher makes one that the clamp system works real well. So if you don't have rifles that have those attach points, you might want to get something like a hog saddle or a clamp system. They work very, very well. I think you guys are going to be able to see in this one. And this is a big, heavy rifle, but if I wanted to have a tripod to be able to set down, see, trying to deploy this under the clock with this in your hands is not going to be easy. What you can do is basically put it in the clamp this down. Let's say I'm shooting over high grass or something. Then I can loosen this ball here, and depending on, this is why I don't like these triple systems, because you can adjust the tension. You just got to get used to it. Then you have a couple different options on how you can shoot with this rifle, but it's pretty darn steady. You can see the wobble where we're clamping into the center section here, so anytime you can use an ARCA or a Picatinny, I think it's better. You're still having to take the time to lock this thing in. I actually have some other rifles. I'll show you how fast an ARCA system is, but let me go ahead and take this out. You're going to be losing time. I've seen a lot of sniper teams from previous matches shooting the, like the Marine Corps hog saddle system, which this is very similar to. This is the one by Zeiss. It has some great hard padding in here, and it's machined very, very well. All right, so Zeiss also did the multi-device rail. This is actually really nice. It's handy if you are, let's say, an RO, and you want to attach different devices, like a spotting scope or a binocular. You can do that with this multi-device rail. Now, a lot of times I like to run a spotting scope and a set of binoculars. If you're an RO, then this is probably the best tripod you could ever buy, because it's heavy, it's stable, it's not going to wobble around in the wind or anything like that. So it definitely has a huge advantage over some other options. All right, so let me go ahead and loosen this up. And what we're going to do is we're going to clamp on some accessories here. So let's say I wanted to use, like I said, on this multi-device rail, if I wanted to use my Zeiss Harpia spotting scope. It's very, very easy to do. You have all of these attached points. It is a very well machined piece of aluminum with your quarter 20s and your larger holes in there. Guys, I've had these things where it looks like weather stations. I've seen guys with their survey tape, with their laser rangefinder, the binocular, spotting scope. And one of the beauties is you can rotate this. So if you have a 45-degree head, you can do this while you're still looking straight through your binos. So if you're doing ROing, something like this, there is no other. I haven't seen anything as stable as this. Let me grab a set of binoculars. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So earlier this year, Zeiss actually came out with a set of binos. I did not review them. Probably the best set of reticle binos I've ever used in my life. These are the Conquest, the HDX. They do have a mill-based reticle on the left side of the ocular here. I'll show you a picture of that. This is a 15 power, 15 by 56 is the LRP. And you can adjust the reticle and do all of that. Guys, these are super for ROing. It doesn't have laser rangefinding capabilities, but if that's not something that you need and you're just wanting to do corrections or not get the eye fatigue from looking in a spotting scope all day, this is a great option. Now, I will tell you, Zeiss also has the tripod to binocular adapter. And what this does, it replaces the center stem, the factory center stem in the binocular. So if you have this and you wanted to mount it to use binoculars, you just put the post in here. It's a stainless steel post. Press the lock button, and I can actually adjust the tension on the top. So now I can be spotting like this. I'd actually want a little bit higher if I was going to be spotting all day. One of the biggest things that I see is a lot of guys have these things too low. And so if they are spotting all day long, let's go ahead and raise this to where it's perfect. Look how fast that is, guys. So now I'm relaxed. I can do that, and if I wanted to, I could actually set the spotting scope. I can rotate this downwards. So I've got 15 power. If I need 25 power or something like that, I can just glance over to the left. Super simple, super effective, and I like what they did with it. They offer everything from being able to cant this so you get everything in line. You know, one of the most aggravating things is having your binos set, look on the spotting scope, now you got to move it. Once you get these timed in and you get this adjusted to the right angle, you are solid, you are good to go. They also offered some other things as well. So I mentioned the clamp, the rifle clamp. This is a good solid piece. Actually comes with the ARCA on the bottom, so it's a direct mount. But they also come with some other heads too. Zeiss also introduced 2 heads. Now this is a kit. Now on this max duty kit, there's 2. One's $13.99, one's $12.99. The $13.99 is the one that comes with this kind of like hip socket. This is really unique in that you have pretty much infinite angle up and down with this. It's unlike any other one that I've seen. And you guys might say, well, why is that important? And the importance is, if you get a certain tripod, it is going to limit the angle of incline and decline that you can actually shoot. You have too many limits in the actual ball head. Sure, on some of them you can rotate them around, but let's pretend this is a rifle. I am limited to going downwards. Pretty much, I can go pretty much wherever I want to with this, right? All right, but coming up, that's higher than you're pretty much going to take any shot anyway. So you've got great adjustment with the Zeiss. It is windy out here. I think I'm okay setting this here though, because these are so stable. Now Zeiss also sells separately the Q75 leveling head. And guys, this is very similar to the one that is offered by Fat Boy. Basically, you can put that in the bowl. You do have to adjust with an Allen key, but it's very quick to adjust with that bowl system. However, you're going to be limited on your downward and upward slope based on this throw. It's something that I've seen with a lot of these lower profile. Lower profile does have an advantage though, because when you use it on a bag or use a game changer on top of this, it is a pretty wide platform to give you that. Or, like I said, you could always just do that and then you've got this huge platform to work off of. But to show you what I'm talking about, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this rifle and let me go ahead and rotate it here in a safe direction. And you might not live in a very sloped area, but I'm limited to that as an angle, and I haven't had time to measure it, but that's what we've got, upwards and downwards. For mountain shooting where I shoot, that's not going to work. It's just not going to be enough travel, but it's a much lower profile head and a different alternative what you might be looking for. So guys, I know it was a lot of talking. I know I ran my mouth and gabbed the whole time. But I don't want you to make the mistake and buy the wrong tripod based just off of, okay, just the weight or just the price, because it really does matter. I will tell you, for a lightweight tripod, guys, I'm going to run through the weights here real quick because I did weigh them. This Peak Design, they make this in carbon fiber and aluminum. I have both. This is about $600. Now for a travel tripod for phones and light video equipment, this works well. 3 pounds, 11 ounces, okay? Now the Really Right Stuff, the TFCT, which is one of my favorites, that comes in at 4 pounds, 15 ounces. So roughly 5 pounds for the Really Right Stuff, and it has always been one of my favorites, but it's 5 pounds. The Night Force, the chintzy piece of junk, this one came in at 3 pounds, 8 ounces. The Leupold, the Mark V, believe it or not, at $1,300 or so, this came in at 3 pounds, 10 ounces. And like I said, this is a pretty portable, light tripod that'll do about anything you need it to do for that price point. The Manfrotto, the video tripod, that's 5 pounds. The Tricer, 3 pounds, 3 ounces. Very, very lightweight and easy to do. That's the other problem with some of these heavier tripods. Guys, when you get into position and you need to grab something rear, having something lightweight like that is super easy and super maneuverable when it's lightweight. You know, if I were to grab, let's say, the 2 vets, guys, you see what's happening there? Then the legs kind of collapse. We could tension that out, but these are things you need to know when you start playing around with these tripods. Once again, you don't know what you don't know. If you've never used a tripod, I don't go anywhere without a tripod. I don't travel for any type of events without some type of tripod, not only for the videography work so that I can get you guys this footage, but also for shooting, things like that. Spotting scopes, I always carry them with me, and until you have used a tripod, whether it's for hunting or anything like this, you really don't know what you're missing. Guys, I would definitely check out some of the latest offerings from Zeiss on what they're offering. It might fit your needs, but then again, it might be too heavy. Maybe the price is too high. So that's why you have to consider all 5 of those things before choosing the tripod that's right for you, because I'd rather go with the buy once, cry once than to have all of this stuff. Now, a lot of this stuff was either provided to me, or I purchased them, or I won them. That's in full disclosure. Most of the stuff I won from matches, but the Zeiss was actually sent to me for review to get my idea on it. Also, look into Zeiss whenever you're looking for some lightweight hunting binoculars. They have a great set with their SFL line. If you're into hunting, I'm starting to provide more hunting content. I'm going on another hog hunt. I hope you guys are having a good week. I know this is about, what, a 40-minute long video. I know I'm tired from talking. You guys take care and have a good one.